out. I also want to ask you, I've talked to other people who claim they've been abducted, and majority of them came with an answer when I asked them, do you think they're here to, benefit mankind, or do you feel like they're evil? And I've heard more saying evil. Have you ever got any feelings?
Well, I mean, and that's a great question. Number one, I believe there's good and bad up there, just like there's good and bad down here. Number one. Number two, because my events weren't conscious memory, so I didn't have this terror of seeing these beings in the flesh in front of me. And one of my really good friends, Kim Carlsberg, she was terrorized, and hers were all negative, but I can't say mine were negative. And I believe, and Ray quoted me in the book that, I kind of believe like maybe I either had some kind of a pre-birth agreement to do this when they realized that, my mother was exposed to all of this radiation and they wanted to use me to test. But very strangely, I'm not affected by it. I don't really know why. I just kind of think I agreed to participate in it at some level, some very strange level.
Interesting. Now, when's the last time you've had a vivid dream with something going on?
Well, I mean, I wake up with marks and bruises a lot, where I shouldn't have marks and bruises, like 3-finger bruises and just random stuff, triangular, weird spots where you couldn't really scrape yourself or cut yourself, like behind your ear or, on the side of my hip. But the last time, I mean, I've been getting marks, in the past couple of months, but the last time I really had a vivid dream was probably, I would say, sometime between a year and a half ago-ish. And I had this series of what I call vibration experiences, and Ray goes into quite a lot about those experiences in the book. And those experiences were conscious. I was awake during those vibration experiences. But the last one was like a year and a half ago, maybe a little longer.
Now, did you ever
get... Bobbies Heaven stuff.
Yeah, did you ever get these triangle, impressions on your skin on your wrists?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now,
that's what, in fact, one of the pictures in the book is on my wrist, and I've gotten them a couple times on my wrist, but I only took a picture like when I knew, because I mean, like I said, I wasn't doing a book, but the pictures that are in the book occurred just a couple of weeks before Ray came. One was on my left wrist, and the other was on the outside of my right knee.
Interesting. Now, how about aches and pains after any of this? Do you ever have any aches or pains or anything like that?
So I had an event in, I think it was February of 2010, where I woke up in the morning and I had quite a lot of discomfort. I'll just say it. Number one, in my rectum, a little bit of pain there, but more than that was a really strong burning when I urinated, and it was so bad that like the next day I think I went to the doctor, and I mean Ray tells this story in the book, but this was another one for me because I hadn't been in an intimate relationship at that point. It had been several years, and so anyway, I hadn't been having intimacy. So I go to the doctor, and she's like, well, you've got lesions inside, my girly parts. And, she said, have you ever been diagnosed with the herpes virus? And I said, absolutely not. In fact, my last boyfriend and I, who we broke up in summer of 28. And I said, we both were tested before we, were intimate without protection, and that was years ago. And she said, well, we're going to take blood work and we're going to take tissue samples. And I said, do whatever you have to do. I have insurance, do it. And so she did. And a couple of days later, she called me and she said, well, I have good news and I have strange news. And I said, okay. She said, the good news is your blood work came back and there's no virus. She said, the strange news is that we never have expired test tubes in our lab, but somehow your tissue samples ended up in expired tubes, and so we weren't able to test them. So I don't know what ever happened to those, but what I told her, so in the next 2 or 3 years, in my annual appointments with her afterwards, I had her take blood work to make sure I didn't have the virus, because I was like, well, that's bizarre, But so anyway, back to that time when I had those marks, I happened to bolt up in the morning, like after she told me that, and I was like, oh my gosh, I wonder if I had an event that night. So I went in with the black light, propped my leg up on the sink, opened up my body, and put that black light up against my skin, and sure enough, 6 bright green spots fluorescing. And sometimes people who've had experiences, their scoop marks will fluoresce. So the next day I had my daughter look at it, and, sure enough, she said there's 6 green spots. And so Ray, investigated that, okay, so what could have caused those spots? Could have been urine, then there would have been traces of it all over the skin, not just in those 6 lesions. So that was just really strange for me. So, yeah, I had physical pain with that.
Well, to me, it like one of the listeners out there, a pain in the rectum and when you're peeing and all that stuff. Basically, he's saying it's probably you were having an alien probing, your body naturally without your consent.
Of course. Well, or did I consent? Because I'm not freaked out by it for some very strange reason. So when I saw them fluorescing, I was like, yeah, I had an event last night. It's the only explanation. But I was like, why do they have to take, tissue out of my vaginal area? They've already got my tissue from my shin. I have this enormous scoop out of my shin. They've already got the triangular scoops I've had, the other, scoop marks that I've had in random places. They've got plenty of DNA from me. Why do they, want to keep studying? Maybe now, so this would have been 2010. So I was born, and so I was born in 62, so I would have been 48. So maybe maybe they were testing me to see if I was going through menopause, and they weren't going to take eggs anymore. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, seeing if you were still fertile. Yeah.
I don't know.
Now, hey, Ray.
But yeah, I definitely believe, like your listener said, it was an event.
Yeah. Hey, Ray, our time is almost up. Now, where can they find your books? And if you have a website, go ahead. I want you to take like the next 5 minutes and plug your guys' self.
The book is available on Amazon, and there are 2 books available. It's the first 2 books in the planned 50 Shades of Gray's trilogy. The first one is Evidence of Extraterrestrial Visitation to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and Beyond. And the second one is subtitled Victoria's Secret Truth. And for ease of finding it, type in 3 words, 50 Shades and UFO, and they'll find the books instantaneously. If they're interested, they'll find other evidence of radio shows that I've been on, and now Victoria is appearing on. And there is a secondary place for people in Michigan to buy the book. It is called The Open Book, and it is in a place called Fenton, Michigan. And I have a friend who owns that, and I will drive out of my way. My mom is still up there. She's 92. When I visit her, I'll drive about an hour out of my way to go to my friend's bookstore and drop off a dozen or so autographed copies. So if you want an autographed copy, go to Fenton's Open Book on Shiawassee Avenue.
Interesting. Now, do you have a website or anything where people can check out?
I do. If you look up my first name and last name and type in Wix site, WIXSITE, I've really taken the approach in my retirement that I want to stay retired, but when you write 2 books, you become an instant public figure, and I'm getting less retirement. So I apologize for my very humble website, but it's just my low-key approach to all of this. And I think I'd like your listeners to know that I'm really not trying to change anybody's belief about my own, and that my research is merely for my own purposes. And when I find something super interesting that I think really needs to be shared with the ufological public, that I will write it in the book, or I will say it on a radio show. But I'm really not one of those every weekend I'm at a UFO conference or a UFO cruise. That's really not why I got into this. It was simply to satisfy my own curiosity. So, again, apologies for the humble website, but it is what it is.
Okay. Now, Victoria, I'm going to ask this question I always ask my guests, and then I'll ask Ray this question. If we are being visited by aliens and they are abducting people or putting implants in them, or, taking eggs, doing whatever they're doing, do you feel they're here to serve man, to, benefit mankind, or do you feel that they're here for another motive? I mean, let's face it, if you go out and kidnap somebody, right, and you take their eggs out of them, for example, or you sit there and try to implant them, or you do anything, you're going to go to prison for a long time. So I think if they are here trying to serve humanity, they're taking people and doing things without people's permission. Or if they are getting permission, they're not getting a permission where a person is coherent enough to give it. What is your honest feeling?
Well, like I said earlier, I think there's good and bad up there, like there's good and bad down here. And having said that, I think that the answer can be multifolded, that it could be that people like me who, believe that maybe I had some kind of decision before I incarnated here to participate in this. And others, maybe, we believe that possibly Eisenhower met with the ETs and, traded technology for the ability to, harvest cells from humans. So there are a lot of theories out there.
Well, Victoria, they even go farther than that. I don't know if you guys know who Mary Joyce is. She runs out of North Carolina a reporting center basically for UFOs and all that stuff. Now, she said she had a high-ranking official come to her a couple years ago. There's supposed to be a military base in she's in Cashiers, North Carolina, that is an underground military base. And in this military base, supposedly aliens are working with the military, sharing technology and stuff like that. But these, she claims, from the information she's got, that these are the type of aliens you don't want to run into because they like humans. The same way, like when you go to Burger King or go to McDonald's. And, the old story is like with Eisenhower, supposedly that for trading for information, military information for, advancement in our technology, that they gave a certain right and a certain amount of where these aliens could abduct people and, whatever with them.
Mm-hmm. I think anything is possible, to be honest with you.
I don't know. Ray, what do you think?
Well, I'll just add,
I think if they wanted to
Charles
take us
Hall worked with, Ray, Charles Hall said he worked underground with the tall whites, I think, at one of the military bases. I'm sorry, Ray, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. What I was saying is if they wanted to take over, they could have done that overtly. They have these ships that blink in and blink out. They're huge. The Phoenix Lights, the thing was 2 miles wide. It floated silently. All of that good stuff. All of the reports from when they started in the modern years, 47 through, last week, for the Navy's readjusting all of their UFO reporting procedures for their pilots, tells us that they can go in and out of our skies anywhere they want to with impunity, And if they wanted to take us over overtly, they could. But it would appear to me in